It's Billy Briz, aka at Getting Bills on Twitter, joined by my main man Taylor Stuber. Taylor, how are you feeling today? Are you
Uh,
bracing in the? Do you hear the squeaks from a mile away?
yeah, I mean, it feels like Christmas Day. I woke up it's already 1 p.m. Central Time. I woke up probably 7, 8 hours ago. I'm very excited about this. Feel like a little kid, giddy for Christmas. But man, we got a nice 2-game slate on board today. And yeah, I mean, for the best teams, all of these studs on one slate and a lot of value plays that we're going to have to decipher in this video. But if you guys are new here, haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button. We are going to bring you videos every single day here on Pub Sports Radio. Make sure to give us follows on Twitter at Getting Bills and at Taylor Stuber.
Oh, Taylor, it is going to be a great NBA season. For a 2-game slate, I think this video is going to go a little bit longer than projected for the rest of the year for 2-game slates. But let's start it off right away. First game of the night. Both of these games are going to be on primetime television. I think TNT tonight. Milwaukee's 1-point favorites, minus 125 on the money line. Over-under is the highest on the slate. 223 over-under projected starting lineups for both teams. For the Nets, we have Harden, Brown, Harris, KD, and Griffin to be determined. I don't know. Me and Taylor are talking about before. Who knows what that team is going to project? Milwaukee, Holiday, Allen, Middleton, Antetokounmpo, and Lopez. We're going to start off with the Brooklyn Nets. Who's leading the way for you for the Brooklyn Nets today?
For today, at least, it's going to be James Harden. Obviously, Kyrie Irving not with the team. And honestly, side note, I don't think Kyrie Irving is going to fold this year. He probably misses the entire season with the Brooklyn Nets. And we have some pretty good sample sizes from the Nets last year without Kyrie Irving. But it's really James Harden who I really want to target on both sides. Currently the highest projected player on both these sides, but for good reason. You go back to last year without Kyrie Irving on the court, with James Harden playing next to Kevin Durant. You might look at those numbers, and Kevin Durant's numbers are much, much better than James Harden's. But a lot of that has to do with when he came back in the playoffs. He came back too early, and he was obviously hobbled, injured. He should not have been out there. And Kevin Durant had every opportunity in those playoff games. And that's why the minutes are so skewed. But if you go back to last year without Kyrie Irving, without Kevin Durant on the court, because their minutes are going to be staggered in this game. Kevin Durant and James Harden are going to start next to each other, and they are going to end the halves next to each other. But in between, those minutes are going to be staggered. So they are going to get like 10 plus minutes playing just by themselves. Now, there is some absurd numbers without Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the court, and you just have James Harden out there as the main guy. You get a very, very large sample size, almost 600 minutes. James Harden without Kyrie and Kevin Durant on the court, a 35.5% usage rating. Now, that's crazy enough. But the assist percentage, 59.5% assist percentage for James Harden, averaging 1.75 fantasy points per minute. So James Harden's rates are quite a bit better than Kevin Durant's when they are playing by themselves. But I think that, if you read the tea leaves and go back to last year when they were actually both healthy, specifically James Harden, they were playing next to each other without Kyrie Irving. I think their per minute rates are going to be pretty similar. And I would actually side with James Harden, even when they're playing next to each other, just because of the assist percentage. He's going to be handling the ball a lot more. And I know a lot of people were saying that Jrue Holiday would be a problem for James Harden. I mean, James Harden dropped a 30-plus point triple-double on Jrue Holiday's head last year when he was healthy. So the numbers, when they looked bad for James Harden, it was because he was injured in the playoffs. I'm going to be going to James Harden as my favorite spend-up option on the slate.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with you. He is my second favorite stud on the slate. Point per dollar wise, I think he grades out as the best point per dollar stud on the slate on Draftkings rather than FanDuel due to his price tag. One thing that I thought that was pretty interesting was the Milwaukee Bucks were tied for second last year in pace. So you put James Harden in a spot without Kyrie Irving with a pace up spot for the Nets, considering how fast they usually play, considering their defense. This seems like a Harden smash spot. The one thing that kind of threw me off of James Harden was the ownership. First batch of ownership actually has James Harden double the projected ownership of Kevin Durant. And if that is the case, maybe in a single entry GPP team, I would be more inclined to play Kevin Durant over James Harden. But I think raw point projection wise, you got to go with Harden over KD, especially with some other studs at that same exact position. But some value on the Nets today. Let's get into the value plays. We're going to start off with Joe Harris, small forward, listed on DK tonight at $5,800 and $4,300 on FanDuel at the shooting guard and small forward position. Oh, man, if you look at Joe Harris during the playoffs, my man played absolutely awful, but he averaged 20.6 points, rebounds, and assists in 17 games without Kyrie Irving last season. His over-under tonight is at 16.5. I would be inclined to play the over, but I did not pull the trigger. He has hit the over on that 14 out of 17 games without Kyrie on the floor, and the $1,500 price difference between the two websites definitely pops out as the chalkiest value play on the FanDuel slate. Taylor, what are you looking at for the Brooklyn Nets in value besides Joe Harris?
Yeah, so I love Joe Harris on FanDuel. I think that price is abysmal at $4,300. I mean, it's going to be fresh on people's minds. The most recent playoff series against the Milwaukee Bucks, how bad Joe Harris was. But, you know, you have to realize that that was only one series, and he is one of the best three-point shooters in the entire league, well over a 40% three-point shooter. His minutes are very, very secure, especially without Kyrie Irving. So I'm with you on FanDuel with Joe Harris. DraftKings is a bit tougher to get there, although you do get the 3-point bonus for Joe Harris, and he definitely drain 4 or 5 threes in this game and pay off that price tag. But the guy I really want to talk about is Bruce Brown, $3,600, assuming he gets the start. You know, it was kind of worrisome in their last preseason game where they kind of treated it like a dress rehearsal. Blake Griffin was out of the game, so they kind of, I think they were just experimenting with lineups. They started Nicholas Claxton and played Paul Millsap next to him. And Bruce Brown came off the bench, but DeAndre Bembry and Patty Mills were ahead of him in the rotation. Now, I'm expecting Bruce Brown to grab the start here and play 30-plus minutes, in which at $3,600, he's going to be one of the chalkier plays on the slate, but I think he's a good play nonetheless. You go back to the last playoff game against the Milwaukee Bucks, it went into overtime, so 53 minutes of playing time, and Bruce Brown played 52 of the 53 minutes in that game. So he is locked into some minutes. Now, obviously, this isn't a playoff game. This is an elimination game. It's the first game of the year, but I do expect Bruce Brown to play 30-plus minutes, and at $3,600 on DraftKings, I believe $4,800 on FanDuel, one of the best value plays on the slate.
I think his ownership is going to be a little bit too high for my liking tonight. Granted, I do hear you without Kyrie being on the floor, but if I'm playing in head-to-head in cash games on DK, I think Bruce Brown is a must, but I'm going to be playing more in GPPs tonight, and I just don't see the ceiling for Bruce Brown. I would be more inclined to play Bruce Brown without Kyrie and Harden on the floor, but just without Kyrie, it's not going to make him really the primary ball handler. I'm kind of more inclined, since I'm playing in GPPs tonight, around that same exact price range on DK tonight, is Patty Mills, man. He's going to be taking some of that usage for Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench tonight. I prefer him coming off the bench rather than being in the starting lineup, just due to the usage. He didn't really play too much during the preseason. That's probably due to the minutes that he played overseas this season in the Olympics for Australia. But on this slate, you could do a lot worse for value. $900 cheaper on $900 cheaper on DK than he is on FanDuel. So I kind of do like the price tags of both players on DK tonight, but I'll probably be more inclined to play the cheaper owned player between the two. But I think the real question about this Nets team is, what is the front court rotation going to be looking like? Taylor, man, open up the floor discussion. What are they doing at the center position tonight?
I just think it is a mess that I'm going to end up avoiding today. We saw Blake Griffin end the year as the starting 5 for this team, playing big minutes. But now we have the addition of LaMarcus Aldridge. He was with the team last year, retired. He came back. He looks to be in the full swing of things. And then Paul Millsap is also a new addition to this team. And Nicholas Claxton is a year older, has a summer league and preseason under his belt now. So he should definitely vie for some minutes in this rotation at some point in this year. Not so sure in this game, but the minutes are just so spread out. I would have to say Blake Griffin has the highest upside of playing time, but I'm assuming these guys are all going to play around that 20-minute range. And with there being so many good plays on this slate, it just seems like a giant avoid spot for me.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with you on that. Just looking at the first batch of ownership today, Paul Millsap was grading out as one of the highest owned players under 4K. And if that's the case, then I'm going to be fading Paul Millsap. I'm never a guy to really play Paul Millsap in general, even the days when he was starting over there in Denver in his prime. And I still probably won't be playing him for the Brooklyn Nets. However, I will say thank you, Taylor, for the preseason videos, because he did win me a lot of money during the preseason. And I think some people are kind of preseason biased, and I think his ownership will be a little bit higher on this slate than usual. Blake Griffin kind of seems like more of a full fade for me tonight. I think he got extended minutes due to the fact that wasn't Claxton hurt during that playoff run in that last series against the Bucks?
Yeah, they just didn't trust him defensively. And I did want to mention that they also added James Johnson, which would be a perfect matchup for defensively for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like they bring James Johnson in for reasons like that. For
do you think he takes the PJ Tucker role?
He could. I mean, we could see him on Giannis. Now, I don't want to play James Johnson, but if there's any potential for him to eat into the minutes of Millsap, Aldridge, and Blake Griffin, I mean, that just muddies the water even more.
Yeah, I think for the Brooklyn Nets tonight, while we will be considering looking at our phones at every commercial break, looking at our updated scores, thinking that we're in first place after the first commercial place, but I don't think I'm going to be looking at my phone. I'm going to be looking at the game because the rotational pieces behind the studs on the Nets is just a question that we could probably run for 30 minutes on a video separately about. But let's go over to the Milwaukee Bucks. They have the highest team total on tonight's slate. Leading the way was your cover boy. Would you like to talk a little bit more about Giannis tonight?
Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo just way too cheap, especially on DraftKings. I mean, $10,000 is insulting to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, he is the best fantasy player in the league. I don't care if the starting lineup is healthy. Actually, the backups are very thin in the backup squad without Dante DiVincenzo, Bobby Portis, Rodney Hood, Semi Ojeleye, and actually without Bobby Portis and Semi Ojeleye in this game, and then PJ Tucker obviously not with the team any longer. They don't really have the opportunity to play small ball behind Brook Lopez. So those responsibilities are going to fall onto Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we could get more minutes of him playing at the 5. And actually, we're going to see more minutes from Brook Lopez in this game, I believe. And Giannis is actually slightly better fantasy point per minute player playing next to Brook Lopez, kind of helps out the spacing for him. But there were some interesting stats from last year and in the preseason. So last year with Giannis Antetokounmpo, 33.7% usage rating, 17.8 total rebound percentage, 27.1 assist percentage, averaged 1.6 fantasy points per minute. And that was over the course of an entire year. He led the Bucks in all of those rates, but he did change his jump shot form in the offseason just a bit. And he shot, now these numbers are crazy and they're not going to stick throughout the season, but if Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's still a young player. He's still evolving, getting better. He shot 71.4% from mid-range in the preseason and 66.6% from 3 in the preseason. Those are crazy numbers, but if he's going to improve his jump shot, this dude, I mean, people don't talk about it enough. Giannis Antetokounmpo, with what he's done so far in his career at this age, like he could literally be the GOAT. And he is going to be a buck for his career, seemingly. He's already won a championship here, multiple MVPs. And with him winning a championship, I think that people are going to give him more of a chance to win a third MVP now, because people are kind of holding back on him winning more MVPs until he really proves it in the playoffs. Well, he did it last year. And we could see that him win another MVP this year. And I think he's only getting better.
That is a hot take, Taylor, by saying Giannis is the GOAT.
I said it's a possibility.
I will
He
replace
has
the
the
Russell
upside.
Westbrook GOAT title for daily fantasy and put it on Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yes.
He averaged 56.4 fantasy points per game last season. The only person to average more points per game than him last season was Julius Randle at that position, and that's just a product of Thibodeau does not pull
Minute.
people off the floor. So I guess Julius Randle will have more points than him, but I think Giannis definitely by far favorite stud on tonight's slate. If you're starting a lineup, GPP, cash, head to head, triple up, double up, whatever you want to say, Giannis Antetokounmpo should be in the lineup. But if you don't have Giannis in your lineup, how do you feel about the Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday conundrum? Because the price tag difference between DK and FanDuel, when I first ran it, I was like,
Crazy.
Drew Holiday might not be in my player pool. Then I saw he was $7,000 on DK, and I was like, whoa, 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 buddy.
Yeah, so we know the Milwaukee Bucks. The starter minutes are secure, and so I think the routes that you go on DraftKings today is you play two studs with Middleton and Holiday, or you play three studs and then you avoid this Middleton and Drew Holiday. They were both very good players last year in competitive games, and it's the same with Giannis. The reason their averages are lower than they actually are is because they blow out so many teams in the regular season, and they're only playing like 28, 30 minutes. Now, this is a very tight spread. They're only 1-point favorites at home against the Brooklyn Nets. Very, very fast game. The Brooklyn Nets play negative defense. This should be a very high-scoring game, indicative of the Vegas line, 10 points higher. I think these guys end up playing, 36 minutes, and at $7,200 and $7,000 for Middleton and Drew Holiday, like they are very, very strong plays on this slate. And, honestly, I don't mind playing one of them with Giannis.
My word on the street, always keep my ear to the streets out here. Andrew Wiggins is going to be chalk tonight. Give me Middleton and Holiday over him every single day of the week. If that's the case, we're going to be talking about what the vacation trip will be for tomorrow when we start off the video. But let's go into the value plays of the Bucks, because with this short rotation, you touched on it earlier, they have a very short rotation, and there's a couple of guys that are popping up for me. Pat Connaughton, shooting guard, small forward on DK and FanDuel tonight, and then also Grayson Allen, who could be the projected starter tonight. I will say, I'll start it off with Pat Connaughton. The ownership between him and Grayson Allen is one I'm going to monitor throughout the day. While I don't think that is the case on DraftKings, on FanDuel, they're same exact price tag and at the same exact position, so I'm probably just going to play the lower owned one. But I will say Connaughton's numbers feel a little bit high, because you couldn't have ran any hotter than Pat Connaughton did in the playoffs last year. My man was played like 30 to 35 minutes in that final series run. And while I think he was rewarded for having a hot playoffs last year, I doubt we see Pat Connaughton on the floor for 32 to 34 minutes on opening night. And if they do, then that means the Bucks blew out the Nets out of the gym, which is in the cards of possibilities on tonight's slate. We don't ever talk about blowouts, especially in close projections. But, man, 2-game slate, you're probably going to have to tweak some things to get lower ownership. But, Taylor, I'm going to kick it over to you. What are you looking at for value on the Bucks? Because there's a lot of names on here.
Yeah, Grayson Allen is the guy that I'm gravitating towards a lot of. And if Bruce Brown is going to be very, very chalky, Grayson Allen is my favorite direct pivot. I believe that they are the same price on, or similar prices. Grayson Allen is only $200 more on DraftKings. But, they essentially got him for free. Don't know how that ended up happening. They got him essentially for free from the Grizzlies. And it looks like he has taken favor over the Bucks, over Pat Connaughton. He has been grabbing these starts in these dress rehearsal games in the preseason, and he has been playing lights out, and he's not a guy that needs to score. Now, he is a very, very good three-point shooter, but he can fill it up, boards, he can handle it, he can get assists, steals, blocks. I think he's a much better per minute producer than Bruce Brown. And honestly, their minutes could end up being similar in this game. They like him enough to assign him to a 2-year, $20 million extension just a couple days ago. So it seems like they're all in on Grayson Allen, and he should be grabbing the start here with no Dante DiVincenzo. And Rodney Hood is not there to steal some minutes behind him. So I am all over Grayson Allen today on both sides.
I definitely will agree with you, Taylor, because when you start thinking about the closing lineup, broad view scheme of things, there could be a scenario where you see the Nets slide in, Patty Mills at the 2 guard position. Just from a scoring perspective, it seems to make more sense. And I really doubt that Grayson Allen's going to be pulled out of the closing lineup, but there is a value guy, flat minimum price on DraftKings and FanDuel tonight. Jordan Nwora. Going to struggle saying that name this year, but that's a name that I'm probably going to get used to saying this year because he's going to be filling in for Bobby Portis. If he can just capture just a little glimpse of that role and play 12 to 18 minutes tonight, he's going to absolutely smash that bare minimum price tag. Granted, I can't really project him too much because his fantasy point per minute last year was 1.30 fantasy points per minute last year. I think that's a little bit too high. I'm not going to go there and say that he's going to average that. But if we get at least about over a fantasy point per minute, 12 to 18 minutes at bare minimum price, Jordan Nwora will be how I'm going to pivot off of that Nets front court chalk tonight.
Yeah, the per minute rates of Jordan Nwora is very, very evident. If you played Olympic basketball, if you're a degenerate, you played Olympic basketball on DraftKings, or you played preseason, you know how good Jordan Nwora is on a per minute basis. And 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Now that is a bit skewed because he played a lot in the blowout run when he's not playing next to Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday. So when he's playing next to those guys, his usage is going to come down a bit. He's not going to be handling the ball as much. But if he can get a rotation minutes out of this lineup, and he can reach 15, 20 minutes, he would be a pretty good play. I'm probably not going there today with a relatively healthy lineup outside of, Bobby Portis and Semi Ojeleye in the front court. But looking forward, I'm probably going to get a lot of Jordan Nwora in future slates.
Yeah, just slate. I think I'm just gonna fade the ownership on this slate since it's like the first slate of the season, and some of the ownership projections that I have seen. Hopefully, it changes around by like 4:00. But like some of these value plays are just going through the roof. It's like everybody signed up for a projection system for this offseason. But before we head on to the night game, quick shout out to the sponsors over at Manscaped. Joined by my main man, Taylor. Taylor, you can follow Taylor Stuber over at Taylor Stuber on all social media platforms. We are going over these 2-game opening day slate for NBA DFS, DraftKings, and FanDuel. Last game of the night, TNT, also again, 3.5-point favorites will be the LA Lakers and a 22, I think it's 227-point over-under. Kind of a pace down spot for the Lakers. Pace down spot for the Warriors, pace up spot for the Lakers. Here, starting lineup projections is Curry, Wiggins, Porter, Green, and Looney for the Warriors. And then for the Lakers, Russell Westbrook, the new addition, Kent Bazemore, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and who's the fifth guy, Taylor? We're going to find out once we ask you. Who are you looking at with the Warriors first?
Yeah, so the Warriors are a bit of a trickier team compared to the others. There's a couple of standout players, but I'm going to fade the ownership a lot in this outside of a couple of key guys. I actually think Jordan Poole does end up getting the start at $4,800 on DraftKings. DraftKings FanDuel, Jordan Poole is an absolute lock for me. He earned the trust of the veterans of Steve Kerr late into last season. There's obviously no Klay Thompson. Still, he's probably not going to return until around Christmas. So Jordan Poole should grab the start here. And I think that his minutes will be somewhat staggered with Steph Curry because they are missing so many ball handlers on this team. They just lack guards altogether. So I love Jordan Poole. If you watch the preseason, it was Steph Curry running the offense, and then it was Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole was running the offense way more than Andrew Wiggins. And I hear that Andrew Wiggins is gaining some ownership on this slate. I'll say $1,400 go down to Jordan Poole. They're going to play somewhat similar minutes, and I think the usage rate is going to be higher for Jordan Poole, the assist percentage as well. I think Steph Curry is a fine play on the slate, but then Draymond Green at $6,800. I'm really high on Draymond coming into this season. They are really trying to go all out this year to win a championship, while they still have Curry, Green, and Klay Thompson potentially coming back. But early on in the season, I don't think that they are going to run that small ball lineup as much, just because it is so hard on Draymond Green. He is getting older. But Steve Kerr had already mentioned a couple days ago that Draymond will be on a light minutes restriction coming into the season. So maybe instead of playing 32 minutes a game like he did last year, it gets scaled back to that 26, 28 minute range, which is more than enough to take me off of Draymond Green.
Yeah, no, I definitely will agree with you on that. I kind of on FanDuel, you're gonna have to if you're playing the GPPs on FanDuel tonight, you're probably gonna have to play some Draymond Green tonight. But I'm not gonna full fade Curry tonight. I kind of really like Curry considering the ownership compared to the other studs on the slate. I think I'm gonna play some Steph Curry tonight. His 1.40 fantasy points per game ranks out just right behind the top studs on the slate. And actually, without Klay Thompson on the floor, he averages a career high 5.8 rebounds per game. So I kind of like Curry on tonight's slate, more inclined to play him. I don't really think it makes a difference between the website. He's more of just a GPP play, just off of the fact that I just don't think his floor is safe enough for cash games. But I do like me some Curry today. But I think the chalkiest player from this team tonight is going to be Otto Porter Jr., who's going to be taking over the Kelly Oubre role for this team. There is a case to be made that he could play 30 minutes tonight. Like if he filled in strictly for Kelly Oubre tonight, he would absolutely smash that price tag on FanDuel tonight at $4,400. He's actually my favorite FanDuel value play of the slate, being $1,000 cheaper between the two websites. I don't know if I'm going to get myself into a tricky situation by fading the early chalk tonight, but in Otto Porter, we trust like it's 2015 all over again. What are your Otto Porter thoughts on tonight's slate?
Yeah, so Otto Porter, we know what he is. He's a good fantasy player. The problem has always been, his injury status. How healthy is he? But he's coming into the season. It's the first game of the year. He's healthy. They're going to use him while they can until, hopefully he doesn't get hurt, but, it seems to always happen. And while he's healthy and without Klay Thompson, he's probably going to play 25, 26, upwards of 30 minutes in these games, especially when it's competitive. What this game should be competitive against the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't mind him at 5,300. With the route that I end up going a lot tonight is I'm stacking up a lot of these studs and going a bit cheaper than Otto Porter. But if I ended up in this mid-range, like I prefer Otto Porter to Blake Griffin in that same price range. And people are going to go to Blake Griffin as well. But definitely think Otto Porter is viable. I think he's more viable on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, just because you get that you get those steal and block upside over there, which Otto Porter is very good at. So I don't mind Otto Porter at all on this slate, but one of my favorite GPP plays on the slate that I wanted to talk about is Nemanja Bjelica at $3,400. I don't think he's going to garner all that much ownership today. And with Draymond Green potentially being on a light minutes restriction, like Steve Kerr has mentioned, maybe they don't use him as the small ball center as much as they usually would behind Kevon Looney. James Wiseman obviously out of this game. So Bjelica playing as the backup guy, a very, very good per minute producer, has been very, very good in the preseason. I think him and Kevon Looney play similar minutes. I would much rather pay down $700 for a better per minute producer in Bjelica, and you're probably going to get an ownership discount on Bjelica to Kevon Looney, solely based off of Looney's going to have that little green check mark next to him saying that he's starting. But we know that Kevon Looney is not going to close this game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Just like on the Lakers, we know that DeAndre Jordan, who's probably going to start, is not going to close the game for the Lakers. Both these teams are going to close small. Now, whether it's Draymond Green or it's Bjelica at the 5, that is still up for debate. But I still think that Bielitsa probably finds 20 minutes in this game, and he is going to be shooting when he is out there on the court.
I definitely will agree with you on that. A couple of preseason notes that I got was Bielitsa was actually in the rotation. He was the backup for Looney. And then on top of that, when they asked Draymond Green his thoughts about Bielitsa for the upcoming season, he said, I didn't think the kid was that good. He was doing stuff that I didn't even know Bielitsa could do. So if we're getting Bielitsa in a playmaking scenario, there's been times back in the day on like slates 2 to 3 years ago when I feel like Bagley was out and Bielitsa would be starting. Bielitsa is a good fantasy point producer when he gets the minutes. But let's go over to the LA Lakers side. We're going to talk about the three studs. Let's decipher between the three studs tonight. Are you going to play the historical GOAT in Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, or LeBron James? Because, I mean, Anthony Davis is at a position where it's pretty lackluster. Russell Westbrook's at a pretty deep position. And then LeBron James is LeBron James. You know, I'm not going to say anything disrespectful about LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably rank him in the order of their pricing: LeBron, then Anthony Davis, then Russell Westbrook. I think Westbrook probably takes the biggest hit on this team coming over to the Lakers and joining LeBron and Anthony Davis. I think LeBron, his role is going to continue to be the same. Vogel already mentioned that they want to play him about 34 minutes a game. And I think we see similar minutes from Westbrook and Davis. So if they're all playing similar minutes, I'm probably going to side with LeBron James. Westbrook has seemed all out of sorts in the preseason so far. They went winless in the preseason. They did not look good at all. I still like him in this game, but LeBron James, you know, I like looking at it from more of an analytical standpoint most of the time. But with LeBron, you know, when he wants to try and it's a spot that you think he's going to try, he's probably going to try pretty hard. You know, this is the first game of the season. You know, there's been a lot of shit talking about LeBron and the Lakers in the preseason so far, and they are at home against Steph Curry. I think he tries a bit harder in this game. I know that sounds silly to say, but you know, he's only $9,000. I think that is just entirely too cheap for LeBron James on DraftKings. FanDuel, I'm still going to play him anyways, but I think that he is my choice of the three from the Los Angeles Lakers. Anthony Davis, if we get news that he does start at the 5, I would be a lot more interested in him. Obviously, I think he's going to close the game as a 5, but Frank Vogel already mentioned yesterday that he knows what the starting lineup is going to be, but he's not going to disclose that information until closer till tip-off. So we're probably not going to receive that news until like 30 minutes before. So make sure to be on the watch for that. Because if Anthony Davis is starting at the 5 as opposed to the 4, he becomes a much, much better play. And then I would consider playing him straight up over LeBron James.
I will definitely agree with you on that. Another injury news to monitor throughout tonight's slate is going to be the new addition to this team, probably coming off the bench, backing up Russell Westbrook, is going to be Kendrick Nunn, point guard, shooting guard position. If you're looking for a direct pivot on tonight's slate from Jordan Poole, I think Kendrick Nunn could be viable. While I don't think the floor projections are going to be anywhere close to the same, let's just say in a weird scenario, Jordan Poole does hit a floor game and Kendrick Nunn has a ceiling game, you're going to get really low ownership on probably the highest usage rating player coming off the Lakers bench tonight. And if he's active for tonight's game, like I think he will be, it's kind of like how we were playing Dennis Schroeder in the beginning of last season. If this is the Dennis Schroeder price tag, then I'm going to be inclined to play Kendrick Nunn as a pivot off of the Jordan Poole chalk on both websites. Value-wise on this slate, though, there's a couple of old heads on this slate that are really popping up. First one being Carmelo Anthony, $3,900 on DK and $5,000 on FanDuel tonight. While when I did my projections, I thought I was going to play Carmelo Anthony. I looked at the projections, and I guess everybody else thinks it's 2008. Carmelo Anthony's under 4K, and he was just way too high owned for my liking. What are you doing with the value for the Lakers? Because I'm fading the studs personally from the Lakers and playing the value from the team. That's either going to make me a lot of money or lose me a lot of money. So hopefully you can help me out with that, Taylor.
Yeah, it's usually a pretty good rule of thumb when these value plays are gaining that much ownership that you know, these players may be in good spots, but they're not necessarily world beaters, especially Carmelo Anthony at this age. And so if he's going to gain a lot of ownership, you know, he is pretty scoring dependent and he could fall flat on his face pretty easily in this matchup. I still think he's a decent play, but if he's going to garner a lot of ownership, I'd probably go elsewhere in tournaments. Malik Monk is probably the guy I like the most out of these value guys for the Los Angeles Lakers. He was grabbing all the starts until he got injured in the preseason. And, they robbed the NBA by snagging Malik Monk for that cheap. He is $4,500. He's probable for this game, but I'm expecting him to get the start in this. Kent Bazemore ended up starting in these dress rehearsal games down the stretch of the preseason because Malik Monk was out. But before that, Malik Monk was firmly ahead of Kent Bazemore, and he is a much better 3-point shooter, which really opens up the floor for when you have Russell Westbrook and Dwight Howard or DeAndre Jordan on the court. You need spacing, and Malik Monk offers that in spades at $4,500. Malik Monk, if he gets hot, they are going to keep him out there for as long as he's hot. So he has the upside of playing into the 30 minutes if he is shooting well. And so that is the kind of GPP play that you want. A guy that is going to be rewarded minutes when he is playing well. So I like Malik Monk a good bit at $4,500. I think he comes in at very, very low ownership, and I actually think he grabs the start here tonight.
I definitely think this is one of the news that you're just gonna have to monitor throughout tonight because there's a lot of things that can really happen between both of these starting lineups in key positions that's gonna really make pivotal moves on tonight's slate. But Taylor, before we head on out of here, I'm gonna ask you your favorite stud, your favorite value play, and your favorite conviction play of tonight's slate. I'm gonna start it off. My favorite stud of tonight's slate is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, I got to play Giannis. My favorite value play of tonight's slate is going to be Otto Porter Jr., more primarily on FanDuel. That's where I'm going to be playing my GPPs tonight. Come on, $3 for a $250,000 shot. Sign me up. And my conviction play of tonight, I've been thinking about the conviction play as we've been going through the video. I think the conviction play for tonight is gonna be Kendrick Nunn for me, man. If Jordan Poole is gonna be 80% owned on FanDuel and 65% owned on DK tonight, I'm dying on the ship of the LA Laker value, or I should say I'm fading the value in the early game to play the late game value. I think that's where you're gonna get the pivot tonight. So like guys that we talked about in the late game, like Bielitsa, Kendrick Nunn, Kent Bazemore, Malik Monk, Carmelo Anthony. Like Carmelo Anthony's probably going to be the chalkiest dude in the night game, and that sets it up pretty easy for pivots around that. But Taylor, favorite stud, favorite value, conviction play of the day.
Yeah, so I said it wrong earlier. My favorite stud would probably be Giannis on this slate, but since you went ham, I'm going to go with James Harden. Full disclosure, I'm going to play both of them. So I think that they're both very, very good plays, but James Harden is probably my favorite stud on the slate. My favorite value is going to be Jordan Poole. He is going to be chalky, but some chalky plays you just want to play. And then if you want to bink something if you want to bink a tournament, you don't have to get completely different. Get different elsewhere. You don't have to full fade the chalk. You can get different on 2 or 3 plays. You don't have to get different with your entire lineup. So I'm going to go with Jordan Poole as my favorite value play. And then my conviction play of the night is going to be Grayson Allen. I think he grabs the start here. I think they use him down the stretch, and I think he plays, 28, 30 minutes, and he's going to be a lot lower owned than Carmelo Anthony and Bruce Brown. I like Grayson Allen quite a bit on both sides. Very, very affordable. Love Grayson Allen tonight.
I think tonight is going for a 2-game slate. Tonight should be a very profitable night. Make sure if you guys are in the chat, we usually have Big Show behind the stage pulling up the chat. So sorry if I didn't pull up your comments today. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Make sure you hit the bell notification with basketball around the corner. Man, basketball is here, not around the corner. It's here.
8 straight months of professional basketball. It's exciting.
It's going to be pretty wild here on Pub Sports Radio. You got to hit the bell notification. We got Taylor and me for NBA. You got Maxwell Smart. We just got him for NCAA. When it comes to the NBA Pub Hub, that returns today. Happy birthday, Dutch Boy Fresh. We're going live at 4 p.m., breaking down the betting aspect of today's slate. Got a couple fire player props for you for tonight's slate, but make sure you hit the bell notification to get notified for all of our live videos on Pub Sports Radio, and make sure you stay tuned for Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the top 25 NCAA countdown with Maxwell Smart. But until next time, we're going to head on out of here. Taylor, where can they find you at?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Taylor Stuber. I don't know if it's linked down below, but you can join my Discord. It's completely free to join. Good time over there. But yeah, make sure to follow me over on Twitter at Taylor Stuber. If you guys want to see my other NBA content, I already have a video posted that goes just as deep as this video on my own YouTube channel. You can just search up Taylor Stuber. You'll find it. And I do live stream 30 minutes to an hour before lock every single day on that YouTube channel. So make sure to go subscribe over there.
Make sure you're in the chat tonight. I'm going to be in there an hour before lock. Until next time, we out. We be pubbing.